All right, guys, in this foldable, we're going to talk about congruent figures, and this is the start of section 5.2. That's what we're going to go over. On this foldable, there's 2 pages worth. You're going to cut along the solid, bolded black lines on these 2 pages. So you should have 4 different rectangles cut out. This being the first one, this being the second one, this being the third one, and this being the fourth one. Okay, so each of these should be separate. Now, when we're done filling them all out, you're going to glue along right here on each of them to where they go together, and your end product should look like this. All right, so let's first define what congruent figures are. So there's 2 parts to this. You might want to write kind of small because there's a little bit to write here. 2 geometric figures are congruent if they are exactly the same size and the same shape. And we'll talk about the second one a lot more in a little while. But there is a correspondence between their angles and sides such that corresponding parts are congruent. All right, if I look at these 2 figures here, it looks kind of like it's just a reflection over. So really my corresponding angles would be C and R. So I'm going to say angle C and angle R, comma. And then it looks like A and P. So angle A and angle P. And then our third one would be B and Q, angle B and angle Q. All right, now when I talk about corresponding sides, I'm going to go ahead and just highlight. Those are corresponding. The short one and this short one, and then this one and this one. Okay, so I can write that, well, I'm going to do blue first, so BC, segment BC and QR are corresponding. Should put an and there. How about AB and the yellow here is QP. And then also the green, which is AC and RP. And as we'll learn as we go forward, these pieces that are corresponding, they're also congruent. All right, guys, let's talk about the congruent statements that we're going to be writing now. A congruent statement tells you a whole lot of things, maybe more so than the actual picture does. So it's very, very important that we write congruent statements correctly, because if we write them incorrectly, everything's going to be screwed up. All right, so let's start here. It says you must list the corresponding vertices in the same order, okay? So we can tell a lot just by this. All right, so let's, I'm going to go and I'm going to highlight my C, which is my double rainbow, and notice my R is also a double rainbow. Okay, and my A, which is just my single mark, and my Q is my single mark. And then my P, which is triple rainbow. Here's B, which is 1, 2, 3 rainbows as well. Okay. Now I'm going to just attempt to draw the sides the best that I can. Here's a triple mark here and a triple mark here. Here's a single mark and a single mark, and then double mark side and double mark sides. So notice these two triangles are congruent because every angle over here is congruent to every angle over here. Every side over here is congruent to every side over here. Okay, so now I want to look at the order. So these are congruency statements. Right here, what we're getting ready to do. It's basically how we say that two figures are congruent. So guys, I do a lot better when I color code things. So I've marked angle A in purple. Okay, so I'm going to highlight every angle A in purple. Okay, I've highlighted C in green, so I'm going to highlight C in green. And I've highlighted my B in this pretty blue color. Okay, now notice I can write congruent statements in several different ways. There's 3 different options that I'm showing here. Okay, the order of the first, as you can see, doesn't matter, but what matters is the order that we put the second in matches the order that we put the first in. All right, so what I mean by that, so angle A is first, which is purple. So if I go over here, my Q is purple. B is second, which is blue. My P is blue. And my green is C. And my R is also green. So ABC is congruent to triangle QPR. That means the first and the first are congruent. Second and the second are congruent. Third and the third are congruent. Okay, so if I do this one here, BCA, so B is blue, so the angle of my other triangle that's blue is P. My C is second, which is green. The other angle that's green is R. And my A is purple, and my purple on the other side is Q. Okay, so go ahead and do this third one on your own to make sure the order matches triangle CAB. All right, so when we do this, C is green, so over here I have R is green, and then I go purple is A, so my purple is Q, and my B is blue, and so is my P. So you should have got triangle RQP. Okay, you must mark congruent parts in the diagram. All right, now let's remember down here that congruent statements, we identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts, so that means that all angles are congruent, along with all pairs of sides are congruent. Okay, so what I want you to do here, and I'll do one with you, is go through and write all the congruent angles and all the congruent sides. So corresponding parts. So N is this double rainbow, so I can say angle N is congruent to, well, D is this double rainbow here, so angle D. So that'd be one of the 3 angles. Okay, so the sides, TN is the 1, 2, 3 hash mark, so TN is congruent to the 3 hash marks over here is BD. Okay, so go ahead and write each of the angles and sides over here. All right, so here are the congruent angles. These are also the corresponding angles. And these are the congruent sides, and these are also the corresponding sides. Okay, now remember, if you had to put B over here and T over here, that doesn't matter. If you had to put NA over here and OD over here, that doesn't matter neither. All right, now we're going to do a congruent statement. So I'm going to start it, and I want you to finish it. So I'm going to say that triangle ANT is congruent to triangle, and I want you to fill out this part. If you need to color code the ANT and color code this, do that. All right, so the order that responds to triangle ANT is ODB, and once again, I went ahead and I color coded like things to make it easier. All right, so let's look at this last page, which is the examples page. It has examples on the bottom. All right, so if I look up here, I want to find X and Y. So notice there's a Y and an X here, but only an X here. Okay, so I'm going to look at this first. So that 2x minus 4 is talking about this QR segment here. Okay, so I'm going to ask you which segment on this left corresponds to the QR on the right. Yeah, it's the long side, so it's GF corresponds. Okay, so if these are congruent, which they are, notice that this is QR. QR is the last 2 letters. This is GF, or FG, whichever. GF is the last 2 letters. So not only do the angles correspond with each other, but the sides do too. Okay, and we know since they're congruent, the corresponding sides are congruent, so that means 12 feet is going to equal 2x minus 4. Okay, so now I've turned a geometry problem into an algebra problem, so add 4 to both sides. So 16 equals 2x. Divide by 2, I get 8 equals x. Okay, so my 8 is x. Now I'm going to turn my attention toward my x and my y. Okay, so I can solve this, but I know the value of x, so I'm just going to change this to 2y plus, I'm going to substitute 8 in for x. Okay, now you need to ask yourself, what does angle Q correspond to? Okay, well Q is right here, it corresponds to F, which is right here. Okay, so angle Q and angle F are corresponding angles, which means they are congruent, which means we can set them equal. So I can say that angle Q, which is 6y plus 8, that's going to equal angle F, which is 68, minus 8, so 6y equals 60. My y then is 10. So there's how you would solve your x and your y. All right, so to show that these two triangles are congruent, I have to show that all pairs of sides are congruent and all pairs of corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, so the sides. I have PS and QR, and I know that because they have the one tick mark. So I just say PS is congruent to QR, that's given in the diagram. The 3 hash marks is ST is congruent to TQ's 3 hash marks. And then the 2 PT is congruent to the 2 here, which is TR. So I've shown all sides are congruent to a side of the other one. All right, angles are a little bit more difficult. Okay, well first we see this angle here and this angle here. Okay, so I know that angle PTS, PTS is congruent to angle QTR. And how do we know that? We know that by the vertical angle congruence theorem. Guys, that's back to chapter 1. You should know that by now. Those are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. All right, the next two are a little more tricky. Okay, notice this arrow here and this arrow here. Okay, and that signifies that these two lines are parallel. Okay, now think of these as parallel lines. And think of this as your transversal. Okay, so 2 parallel lines, you have your transversal that goes up through here. What do we know about this angle here and this angle here? What kind of angles are these? Okay, these are alternate interior angles, and alternate interior angles are congruent. Well, guys, that is this angle here and this angle here. So I can say that angle S is congruent to angle Q because they're alternate interior angle theorem. Okay, well, now I just need to show P and R, but if you look at them, we have the parallel lines, and then we have the transversal that goes here, and is in this alternate interior angles as well? Well, guys, it's the same thing here, alternate interior angles. So I can say that angle P is congruent to angle R by the alternate interior angle theorem again. And that's it for that foldable.